Hello. So we've been talking about the Bill of Rights. Remember, the Constitution was passed because they added the Bill of Rights to it. The Bill of Rights stated that the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, and it talked about the rights that all people should have in America. All right, we know that there are actually 27 amendments, but the Bill of Rights only deals with the first 10. So we're going to be talking about 3 of those rights today, and then in our next lesson, we'll address all the rest of the rights in the Bill of Rights. What you need to understand about our text is that it does the First Amendment, then it does the Second Amendment, and then it skips the Third Amendment and does the Fourth Amendment. So you're wondering what happened to the Third Amendment. Well, you're going to find that out in tomorrow's lesson. They kind of put 4 of the amendments together at the end that they don't have as much to say about. So you'll notice that we'll skip a few, but we will come back to them. You'll have all 10 by the time the week is over. All right, so remember some things about the amendments. First of all, why is it important to know what the amendments are? Most importantly, it's so that your rights are not taken away from you. If you don't know your rights, how do you know if people are not, taking them away from you? Okay. What I want you to do today is make sure you are listening for what the rights are that each amendment states, because when we finish, you're going to take do a Google quiz on what the rights are for each of the amendments we read about today. We're reading about 3 amendments today. All right. Remember, a lot of these rights came because of something that the British did to them that they didn't ever want to happen again now that they're their own country of America. So if you look at 15.3, we're going to start talking about the First Amendment. It says the First Amendment prevents Congress from making laws that take away certain basic freedoms. Among these are freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of the press. Freedom of religion was very important to many early Americans. For example, the Pilgrims left England because people there were forced to join the Church of England. Some American colonies also required people to belong only to one church, and in some cases, people were even put in prison because of the religion that they chose to follow. So that's why a lot of people actually left England. That's one of the big reasons. That's certainly the reason for the Pilgrims. In that third paragraph, it goes on. It says, the First Amendment protects Americans' freedom to choose their religious beliefs and practices. For example, not everyone prays to the same God. Some people don't pray to any God. For these reasons, courts have said that public schools cannot require students to say prayers. We can allow it, but we cannot require it. We can't get up when we say the pledge every day and make you pray to a certain God. Okay? The next paragraph says, freedom of speech is the freedom to express opinions and beliefs. Because of the First Amendment, Americans are free to criticize the government and to express unpopular ideas. You have to understand that is a freedom because we see it all of the time, especially on social media. It says, Americans wanted this freedom because many colonists had been arrested for criticizing British laws. In modern times, leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. have demanded laws to protect the rights of all people. Without the First Amendment, King could have been put in jail for just saying what he believed in public. Freedom of speech does have limits. People cannot use this freedom to harm others or to break the law. An example is yelling fire in a crowded theater just for fun. People won't have the freedom because someone might get hurt and they rush to escape the theater. Think about what would happen if you were in a theater, not that we've been doing a lot lately, but you were in a packed theater or a packed gymnasium and someone yelled fire, everybody would, run towards the door at the same time and someone could definitely get hurt. Next, it goes on, freedom of the press means the freedom to report news and express opinions in newspapers and in other ways. In the colonies, British officials had closed down newspapers and smashed printing presses. Like freedom of speech, freedom of the press has limits. For example, it does not include the freedom to spread lies about other people. And a lot of time, if a newspaper makes a mistake, not even intentionally printing the wrong thing, someone catches them on it, they will print an apology in there and fix the mistake. At the end of the last paragraph, it says, the First Amendment also protects people's right to assemble or gather in groups and their right to petition or ask the government to correct injustices. So if you look at the picture, that is a picture of a protest, and that is actually happening in 1991, about the time I was pretty close to 5th grade, maybe 6th grade. And what happened was anti-war demonstrators, so people that were against the war going on, were exercising their right of freedom of speech by basically standing out there, holding up signs, telling how they felt about this war in 1991, the Persian Gulf conflict. All right, so once again, the First Amendment If you go back into the first paragraph, it tells you all of the freedoms: freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of the press. Now let's go to the Second Amendment. All right, you see a Minuteman in that picture, and Minutemen were supposed to be ready in a minute to fight, so that's where they got that very creative name for them. Okay, so in the Second Amendment, it says, and again, you're looking for what are the rights or the privileges or the freedoms that the Second Amendment gives you as I'm reading. The Second Amendment describes the need of states to have a militia or volunteer army. For this reason, it says that the government cannot take away people's right to keep and bear or carry arms or weapons. So the word bear is kind of confusing to some people. We don't use that very often, but it means to carry. Okay, and arms, not the arms on your shoulders, they are weapons. Okay. So in the second paragraph, it says Americans in 1789 wanted to be able to defend themselves. The Revolutionary War had started when militiamen grabbed their muskets to resist British soldiers. Americans remembered how citizen soldiers fought the British Army to protect their rights. They also wanted to be able to hunt for food and to defend their families. In 1789, there were no police to protect people. In addition, many Americans lived in the countryside and feared attacks by Native Americans and outlaws. So there were lots of good reasons why people needed to be able to carry arms, not just to defend themselves from what they thought might be a government that's too strong, but also they're not going to Walmart or county market to get their groceries. They are killing them out in the wild, right? They're hunting for deer or rabbits or whatever else it might be. So they need weapons to do that. There are also no police to protect them. So they needed that to make sure that they were safe. And then, of course, they were scared that maybe there would be Native American attacks where they were at, or outlaws out in the Wild West and all that good stuff. So you got to have weapons to protect yourself back then and to feed your family. In the last paragraph, it says, today the Second Amendment protects the right to own hunting rifles and certain other kinds of guns. However, people argue whether every citizen has the right to own any type of gun. Many people say no. They are disturbed by violent crimes, accidental shootings, and other events involving firearms. They think there should be laws controlling who can own and carry guns. Others argue that such laws are forbidden by the Second Amendment. They do not think that citizens should have the right to carry guns just because they do not think that citizens should lose the right to carry guns just because some people misuse them. So it's kind of like saying, well, nobody gets to play football because one person's being bad. We wouldn't take football away because of one person. That one person would lose their right to play football. But if there was a bunch of people, then it might make a difference, right? We've been there, huh? In the picture, the caption shows that Minutemen, like the one in the picture, were called to battle at the beginning of the Revolutionary War. Americans in 1789 wanted to be sure that they could defend themselves, especially since there were no police, as I stated before. So they put the Second Amendment in. Remember, again, if you go back to the first paragraph, it says, which is the right to keep and bear arms or to carry weapons. All right, so you're going to have to know that for your assignment today. It's right there in the first paragraph. And our last amendment we're going to talk about today is the Fourth Amendment. Remember, we skipped the third. We'll come back to it tomorrow. It says the Fourth Amendment forbids unreasonable searches and seizures by police and other officials. Seizure means taking away property by force. The Fourth Amendment says that searches and seizures cannot be performed without a good reason. That does not count for your parents. They can do whatever they want. They can search your room. They can take your phone. They can do whatever they want. But the government cannot do that. They cannot come into your home and take things without having a good reason, and they probably have to have a warrant as well. So in the second paragraph, it says, in 1789, Americans wanted to protect their right to safety and privacy. British officials could go into colonists' homes, shops, and barns without warning. They didn't need a good reason to suspect that a crime had been committed. They could seize anything they liked and use it as evidence in court. So again, this goes back to something the British did to the colonists that they didn't like. Now they made a rule or an amendment that states you can't do this in America. It says the Fourth Amendment limits the power of the police to search people or to invade their homes and businesses. Most searches require a warrant, which is an order from a judge. The amendment says that officials must show probable cause or good reason to obtain a warrant. This means convincing the judge that the search is likely to uncover evidence of a crime. In addition, police can search only for the specific items that are listed in the warrant. So if the police think that Mrs. Harshberger, we'll use her as our example. Shh, don't tell her, okay? They think that Miss Harshberger robbed Casey's last night and stole all of the Hershey bars, okay? They saw on the tape of the store that someone used a bat to break the door. All right. So if they think it is her, maybe they saw her car pull away. Maybe it was Mr. Harshberger. Who knows? If they're going to show up at her house looking for that bat and looking for those Hershey bars, they have to get a warrant from a judge, and the judge will say, we're looking for the bat, we're looking for the Hershey bars, and then they can go in and look for those items. If they did not get a warrant and they just chose to go to her house, show up, bust the door down, go in, and there's Hershey bars on her table and a baseball bat sitting in the corner, guess what? They can't use that evidence in court, and it's totally thrown out. So she gets off clean, even though her and Mr. Harshberger liked their Hershey bars and stole some from the Caseys. Now, P.S. Ms. Harshberger is not a criminal, nor is Mr. Harshberger, so they did not get accused actually of stealing anything from Casey's. It's just a good example, right? Okay. All right, so back in the reading, we're in the second to last paragraph. It says, the Fourth Amendment protects citizens from the power of the police and other officials who enforce laws. If a search or seizure violates the Fourth Amendment, the evidence cannot be used in court. Over the years, courts have said that some reasonable searches do not require a warrant. For example, to protect public safety, airport officials can search people's carry-on luggage for weapons. Police can search cars for drugs and stolen goods, but they must have a good reason to believe that the car is involved in a crime. So if there is a good reason and they are trying to protect people in an immediate danger, then they do have the right to do those in some cases. All right. So what you see at the top is a picture again from what was going on with the British and the Americans. It says, in 1789, Americans wanted to protect their right to safety and privacy. Before the Revolutionary War, British officials, like those pictured here, could go into colonists' homes or shops without warning. They could search their possessions and take anything they wanted to use as evidence in court. So that is definitely not okay to do that. Right? So once again, if we want to look back to see what does the Fourth Amendment give you the right to do, okay, it tells you right up here. The Fourth Amendment says that searches and seizures cannot be performed without good reason. Okay? So, in other words, it forbids unreasonable searches and seizures by police. So, you are going to have to use this information when you go into your Google quiz today. All right, here's the thing. We've been doing it on Google Slides, and some of you are kind of rushing through and just throwing something down, and then you're turning it in, and then I correct it, and then you turn it again and fix it. This cannot be returned in. You can only turn this in once, so take your time, right? This is just simple 3 questions. What are the rights that the First Amendment guarantees? You check the boxes for the ones that are correct. What are the rights that the Second Amendment guarantees? Check the boxes that are correct. And then what are the rights that the Fourth Amendment guarantees? Check the boxes. Remember, if you're paying attention still in this video, the answers are the first paragraph of each of the sections. Go back into the PDF that I post and look for that. Do your very best job the first time. If you need to do a split screen so you can take this at the same time, look at your text, do so. If not, write them down on a note piece of paper or something like that so that you have that information. All right. You guys have a great day, and we'll look forward to learning more about the other amendments tomorrow.